Help give kids an extra life by donating today to help sick and injured children. Link in the description and pinned comment below.
World cold and hard. Big Kirby plushie warm and soft.
My dear viewers, I bid you all...
Fire!
These days, we could all use a little cheering up, and what better way than talking again about a series that has miraculously gone 30 years without sucking. Figuratively speaking, mind you. I don't know how HAL Labs has done it, but Kirby has just managed to be so consistently good. Even his worst games are at least passable. I liken Kirby games to a nice cup of strawberry yogurt. Pink, smooth, goes down easy. Of course, not even the hardiest cup of Danon could handle what the puffy pink paladin of Planet Popstar deals with on an afternoon stroll. No wonder the little guy loves to nap so much. The Kirby franchise has featured some of the most fun and creative bosses I've faced, and we're slapping up the wanted posters for the finest in this rogue's gallery of nightmares. Whether it's normal bosses, final bosses, super bosses, hey, Kirby's not a picky eater. You don't pile up a miniature arsenal of copy abilities by turning up your nose. Fluff up your pillow and get comfy. This is gonna go from 0 to chaos in 10 seconds flat. It's game time! One of the symptoms of many bosses from earlier Kirby games is that they tend to go down pretty quickly. So in situations like this, a little creativity can go a long way in making a boss stand out. And we've got a situation in Superstar which fits the bill rather nicely.
Shall we play a game?
The Great Cave Offensive is one pretty weird treasure hunt as it is, but weird is a floodgate being opened for uniqueness. And the computer virus turning the game into a pastiche of turn-based RPGs? Yeah, that's pretty based in itself. And it would have been cool enough if they went for a Dragon Quest style look, but they went for a Windows style interface for that extra bit of cheese. Hey, I live in Wisconsin. I appreciate cheese. The fight consists of 3 enemies, a slime, a puppet, and a magician. And you simply take turns trying to kill each other. Most of the time anyway. The slime and puppet take half of their turns doing useless crap. When you get your turn, sometimes you even get a chance to pick up a copy essence. And there's a second version in Milky Way Wishes with a magician, an evil knight, and a red dragon, but the idea still carries over, just with new attacks from the bad guys. Granted, these fights are easy, especially if you remember to guard, but it's the way the computer virus is presented that brings a smile to my face. Especially when you win and the game displays all these useless stat buffs. Imagine putting that on your D&D character sheet.
Just be sure to keep your anti-malware software updated. Real viruses are much worse.
Squeak Squad may have been derivative and pretty easy even as far as Kirby games go, but if nothing else, it shows just how far Kirby will go to get his precious afternoon snack. Not to mention, the Squeaks were pretty decent antagonists. Being far from your standard Tom and Jerry rejects, they're a constant nuisance throughout the game. Right up to the point where SullyPwnz pet rat bastard hijacks your treasure, only to get hijacked himself. Yup, chalk up another vessel for dark matter. Karma's a bench, I swear. And I'm gonna plant my keister on that very same bench while I do my best Zenigata impression for this phantom-possessed thief. You faced off with Daroch earlier in the game, but given the environment and most of Squeak Squad's boss roster in general, it was over before you could say take your heart. But now with the villainous vermin amplified by Dark Nebula's terrifying power, everything gets cranked up to absurd levels. Ordinary bombs become flame blasts that cause gigantic eruptions, frosted unibeams become Arctic proton cannon shots, and Daroch becomes a lot more trigger-happy with his trademark triple star cane. Not to mention, he teleport spams like he chugged his morning, noon, and night coffee. Like a lot of bosses from before the modern era, the challenge of this fight tends to depend more on the approach you take. Yeah, you could cheap out this boss with stuff like Tornado, if you don't really care how long the fight lasts, despite that you can't use the environment to your advantage this time. But if you really want to savor this fight, try one of the less busted abilities, or even better, try doing it with your bog standard Suck and Spit. The total chaos caused by Dark Daroch's constant and powerful attacks make for a frantic and furious battle. As for Dark Nebula itself, well, we don't talk about that here. When it comes to long-running series, it's not surprising to find at least one character who keeps popping up. Enter Kirby's best frenemy, the hammer-hefting penguin in a parka, King Dedede. Originally the greedy main baddie 30 years ago, he's been involved in a mix of misunderstandings, spin-offs, and getting brainwashed. But eventually, you gotta get serious.
Neil, hit the serious button.
Superstar Ultra really hit the nail on the head with the new adventures it brought. Case in point, Revenge of the King, where the mischievous monarch has decided that he's done with your crap and decided to make it personal. And by personal, there's just Bandana Waddle Dee here to watch your big electrified cage match. And just to show that he's putting his pride on the line, he's leaving behind a hammer for you to go Puffo e Penguino. Except he's wearing a mask to look extra intimidating and packing a tricked out hammer set to maximum clobbah. It's packing electric strikes, a jet engine that lets him spin like a tornado and slam the ground so hard it produces shockwaves, and the head contains a missile launcher and a flamethrower.
It's like going into a sword duel where your opponent has a lightsaber that doubles as a gun, and you've just got a normal sword.
On top of that, the King's standard attacks are boosted to include triple jumps and tackles with super armor. It's set up like a pink puffy David versus a pissed off Goliath. And you're not even restricted to the hammer. Sure, you can play it like hell intended and play the duel of head-to-head whack-a-mole, or you can say, screw it, I want to go bigger, drop the hammer, and do things the old-fashioned way. Either way, this is a crazy fight and it shows that the big guy is out for blood. Shout out to the fight in Triple Deluxe where he breaks out a freaking battle axe, but like several other situations, he wasn't really in control. And it may be a me thing, but that's not how I want to fight a rival. Funny I should mention the fight from Triple Deluxe because that feeds right into my next mugshot. In fact, the whole reason Kirby climbed up the Dreamstalk in the first place was to rescue the big lug from this little pest, Taranza. Turns out he was looking for the hero and made a bit of a mix-up. But of course, there's always a bigger fish. Or in this case...
bees, my god.
I've noticed that the final bosses in the main series have been killing it in the past several games. The first of these we'll see is the tyrannical queen of the skies, Queen Sectonia. A vain villain driven by an obsession with beauty, this bug fights ugly. A menace with both spell and sword, the winged menace will assault you with magic shots, dark lightning, deadly discs, summoned minions, teleport spam, shifting the battle between the background and foreground, and trying to turn you into a kill test dummy. It's a hectic first phase, and it can get pretty nuts. And it only gets crazier when Sectonia merges with the Dreamstalk and tries to turn all of Planet Popstar into her own private little shop of horrors. After the newly freed King Dedede helps you blast through the vines to reach her, you now deal with Sectonia's mutated flower buds, which come packing both blades and projectiles, with Sectonia pulling you ever closer and changing up the platforms as the fight continues. Eventually, Sectonia takes matters into her own hands, even snatching your victory right from under your feet until Dedede and Taranza arrive to power you up for one last hypernova. Now you have the power to break through her final defenses piece by piece, until you completely devour her final attack right down to her health bar and completely annihilate her. Until the true arena, which adds not only the amped up DX battle from DDD Tour, but Soul of Sectonia, which adds an entirely new phase which delivers lasers, more summons, attacking you with vines, and borrowing attacks from previous Soul bosses including both Marx and Drossia, until you give the queen her permanent beauty sleep. It's a crazy and multifaceted fight with 4 banging themes, and it utilizes the 3D effects well, but it does lose a couple points for relying a little too much on bottomless pits. Interestingly enough, the pause screen lore from the post-game actually reveals her to be a tragic villain who was corrupted by the dimensional mirror. So does this make Dark Mind the true main villain? Well, we already took care of him then. Dark Matter trilogy was a bit of an odd time for Kirby. Dreamland 2 was on the heels of one of the NES's best games, and Dreamland 3 came near the end of the Super NES era and barely had a chance. Meanwhile, Kirby 64 was one of the few 2D platformers on the N64. The latter has been widely beloved among the fanbase, with a planet-hopping adventure to save the world of fairies
From the universe's most dangerous D&D campaign.
Roll for initiative, suckers!
Oh man, not 0-2? Yep, rolled a nat 20 for cojones on my stat sheet, because this D20 of despair has the entire rest of Kirby 64's boss lineup beat. Being a biblically accurate angel before it was a meme can only get you so far. Miracle Matter has had every single one of its eyes on you from the moment you arrive to take back Ripple Star from the sinister grasp of a matter most dark. As the second in command of the shadowy forces of evil, this boss stands out by turning the usual ability beatdown on its head. Fought in an arena of darkness akin to a black hole, Miracle Matter isn't a boss you fight in the typical way. It alternates between 7 different forms, each one mimicking one of the game's primary abilities: the sharpened spikes of needle, the pounding pulverizing stone, a burning flamethrower, a buzzsaw cutter, an ice cube, a sparking ball of electricity, and bubble-encased bombs. Each form will only take damage from the ability it represents while being immune to everything else, essentially acting as a dark foil to Kirby's own abilities and preventing you from spamming those broken combos you're used to. You either have to shift quickly to a combo with the ability Miracle Matter is using, or do things the old-fashioned way with the classic Suck and Spit. This is a battle that requires more tactics than a typical battle, backed by a tense and electrifying battle theme. More than that, it further hints at a hidden connection between Kirby and Dark Matter. After 3 games of dealing with the cosmic terror, the way this boss uses Kirby's own abilities against him brings up the stark possibility that there's more to this relationship than just the simple boundaries of good versus evil. And despite the simple arrangement of attacks with each form, it still manages to keep you on your toes in a way that few other bosses in the series can. Quickly adapt to the changing scope of the battle, or tap into the bare essentials of your combat skills. Either way, you have a battle that really nails a crit on execution. Kirby has had a smooth transition to 3D. After a couple of proofs of concept, HAL took what worked for other franchises in adding the Z-axis, ditched what didn't, and made Forgotten Land the 3D adventure we'd all been waiting for. Took its sweet time getting there, but do you want it done fast or do you want it done right? Ask the dude in the mask, he'll tell you. Ounce for ounce, one of the biggest ways that Forgotten Land benefited from the leap into more than one new dimension was giving us one of the most exciting boss lineups in the series. And one of the best examples comes with the latest duel with our Grammy Award-winning badass. Having kept vigil over the growing Waddle Dee town, he's waiting for you at the end of the first Coliseum Cup, ready to put you to the test. No mind control, no corruption, just him, his pride, and his blade. And giving him another axis to work with has done wonders for his repertoire. He's quick to dodge those who go aggressive, so you gotta be ready to do the same against his 3-slash combos, sword beams, and unblockable charge attack. Just like most modern Meta Knight fights, you can choose not to take the sword and go at it with your current ability or even go vanilla. But trust me, if you want the most out of this fight, take the dang sword. Why? Because you can parry Meta Knight's hypercharge and enter a blade clash, knock Galaxia clean out of his hands, and claim it for yourself. Oh, but don't worry, he brought a backup just in case, and how I love your attention to detail! That's his sword's old design. Once you get him down to half health, he'll kick off the second half, and when the heck did Meta Knight become an Earthbender? He's not even using Galaxia for this. Is this his own power? His sword beams get amped up in the second half as well, be it rapid-fire barrages or gigantic waves of fire, not to mention ground-stabbing shockwaves that home in on you. It's pretty damn thrilling for a mid-game boss, especially if you have the standard sword, enhanced even further by the presentation, seeing that you're fighting in front of an audience of cheering Waddle Dees to a jazzy remix of My Friend and the Setting Sun. This is quite possibly the best fight we've seen from Meta Knight, and it proves that Kirby absolutely has a future in 3D. Plus, there's a hypercharged version in the final Arena Cup, so it's a good thing I put up that spoiler warning. Now let's get a Kirby movie so that King DDD can get himself an Emmy. He deserves it, gosh darn it!
biological life must be exterminated. The soul's fire extinguished.
Given the running theme of Kirby fighting eldritch horrors, one of the scariest things he's had to fight is galactic-scale capitalism. Planet Robobot is one of the darkest games in the series, and that's saying a lot. Colonization, mechanization, cloning, technology can be scarier than magic. And at the center of Haltman's business plan is a wish-granting computer made from blueprints left behind by the nebulous Ancients. These people have come up with a lot in the past several games. These are the guys who created Galactic Nova, for Pete's sake. Of course, the final act proves that you can't trust ancient tech, and takes hostile takeover to its logical extreme. I didn't have biological ecocide on my schedule today, but hey, Meta Knight's here. Get in the Robobot, Kirby! Oh look, I'm a battleship now. Let's rock and roll! So now we're playing not Star Fox, blasting away at Star Dream while dodging lasers and blasting all manner of metal-like missiles, code cubes, enemy bots, and enough asteroids to account for all the rings of Saturn, all while absorbing the debris to charge up your giant star cannon. All while one of the most intense boss themes in the series plays, including a sample of Meta Knight's theme. Star Dream responds by linking into Haltman's own headquarters for Phase 2, unleashing energy rings, more missiles, a binary tree of lasers, Haltman's company logo, and going Doc-Ock on a planetary scale. Break away the shell, and of course they went there! Now revealed as another Galactic Nova, Star Dream proceeds to break the last barriers of common sense, trying to pull an Andros on you, assaulting you with a countdown, and weaponizing everyday objects in the weirdest ways possible. And once the final health bar goes down, Star Dream takes one last pot shot, Meta Knight pulls the emergency release, and Kirby finishes off Star Dream by reenacting the lost episode of Gurren Lagann. That is, until the true arena, where the upgraded Star Dream Solo S has one last trick up its sleeve, and a reenactment of its own. As you destroy the pillars... Is that moaning? I don't care how dark this game is. Why is there moaning in a freaking Kirby game? And that's the last of Haltman's soul. I didn't even know people like that had souls. Finally, the heart unleashes its last arsenal of laser explosions, high-energy collisions, one last supply of missiles, and the classic array of cutters, and even when its final health bar drops, it still won't go down without making one last attempt on your life before it finally shuts down for good. The whole experience is a masterclass in what makes Planet Robobot so fun. A total spectacle in presentation, a masterful use of the game's signature gimmick, and it plays spectacularly.
But this whole scenario just makes me more reluctant to upgrade to Windows 11. Stop reminding me, Microsoft! I'll do it when I'm ready, you sons of...
Why'd you ratio me?
You debunked innocent headcanon.
The means to an end!
You started a
I caused an understanding!
You betrayed the lore!
Lore! Holy crap, Star Allies! Who would have thought that a game with a main campaign this easy would hit us with lore this hard? But everything in existence starts with something, and in the world of Kirby, everything comes back to the void. I can't even describe this thing as evil. It's an aspect of existence itself, a primal force which transcends the moral sliding scale, and whose existence was documented by the same previously mentioned ancients. A cosmic essence which exists in all dimensions, born of all chaos and possibilities, dark, soul, dream, and heart, and reincarnated in myriad forms, both of negative and positive energy. And I thought Kirby's black hole of a stomach was just a metaphor. It just so happens that the incarnation released by a twisted religious order happened to be a destroyer of worlds. Known as Void Termina, this beefy behemoth kicks off a 4-phase gauntlet accompanied by a full-blown suite with a full-range showdown, as it creates massive shockwaves and titanic slashes from enormous elemental greatswords, leaving you to blast the otherworldly eyes and blast open a path into the belly of the beast. This second phase is probably the weakest, just blasting away at the shell covering its heart. But what follows is more absolute chaos as Termina goes airborne, bombarding you with elemental arrows, lightning spears, a huge battle axe that creates even more shockwaves, and suspiciously familiar constructs assaulting you with lasers. all leading up to the final phase, where the core, which appears suspiciously like Kirby himself, unleashes Toho on you, creates waves that turn your allies against you, mimics attacks from Drossia and Miracle Matter, and ultimately appears in the form of dark matter and spams lasers, leading up to a DBZ power struggle to finish it off with the power of friendship. But we're not done. Soul Melter brings forth an even stronger final form, Void Soul, which throws in new attacks like the Soul Cutters, ominous purple liquid which can be electrified, and even black holes. Then, with the game's final update, we were given insight into the true form, Astral Birth Void. This final phase of Soul Melter EX adds attacks that were borrowed from Dark Mind, Soul of Sectonia, and even more laser spam, with a final movement of the theme that feels oddly somber, as if Void is lamenting its current incarnation. And to further cement the deal, this form dies in a shower of stars with a blissful smile on its face, as if it somehow knows it will be reborn in light. Just wow! This is arguably the hardest boss the series has ever seen, and one of the most impactful. With amazing atmosphere, an incredible soundtrack, and a wonderfully intense battle in itself, this fight goes the extra mile, making you rethink everything you thought you knew about the franchise. It may have taken us several version updates to get to this point, but dear lord was it all worth it in the end. Return to Dreamland basically marked the beginning of modern Kirby, returning to the series' roots while also bringing in some fresh new ideas, including 4-player co-op with pals, and super abilities which let you reach other dimensions. The majority of the game is spent helping a stranded alien named Magolor rebuild his ship so that he can get back home. That is, until... Just look at DDD's face! I can't think of a better reaction to this backstab than this face right here. Magolor has been a constant source of encouragement throughout the game, never once letting on that he's been planning to double-cross you the entire time. Seduced by the Ancient's most powerful treasure, the Master Crown, Magolor tricked you into rebuilding his ship, another invention of the Ancients, and bringing down Halcondra's guardian dragon, just so he could snatch the power right from under your noses. Basically Marks from Superstar done right. Again, look at his face! So yeah, let's take down this sleazeball. The fight begins with a chase through another dimension aboard the very dragons you just beat. Cinematic parallels, anyone? Throughout the level you deal with moving walls, crystals of various sizes, and even the Sphere Doomers you fought earlier in the game. Eventually you reach Magolor, who turns all your hard work against you as you blast away at the Lore Star Cutter until the Warped Wizard decides he's had it with your shenanigans and decides to come at you himself. And he's no slouch, assailing you with dark energy balls, spikes from the ground, and dark fireballs. Later on, he ramps up his assault, starting with a black hole and giant lasers. Ultimately, the sorcerer will go on the defensive and put up a shield that deflects all your standard attacks, leaving you with only one option, the mighty super abilities. Break through the shield, win one last power struggle, and your Ultra Sword grows to comical proportions as you slice Magolor in half. Which would pretty much end any other villain, except the Master Crown absorbs him and takes control. In this form, he has amped up versions of his previous attacks, along with barrel rolling through dimensions and projecting dark energy walls, and using super abilities of his own. And that's not even talking about his most terrifying form in Extra Mode, Magolor's Soul, which, looking back, pretty much confirms that Void corrupted that crown. This extra form includes even more powerful versions of his previous attacks, additional super abilities, and even going so far as to flip the screen. Seriously, how crazy can you get? Complete with an amazing backdrop that sees you getting ever closer to Popstar, some of the best tracks in the franchise, and the ever-present specter of events that led to this moment, this is a battle that took years to top, as well as a chilling reminder that power is a poison that can corrupt even the most noble of souls. A notion only further displayed at the battle's end by Magolor's very spirit fading away. That is until the Dream Collection came out not too long later. Kirby lore is weird. Now before we move on, here are a few honorable mentions. Squashini from Epic Yarn, Marks from Superstar, Morpho Knight from Forgotten Land, HRH from Kirby 64, and King DDD from Forgotten Land. Now let's see what the Arcade Nation has to say with this month's patron picks.
Triple Deluxe had some pretty great bosses, and Painter is no exception. Her design is awesome and the fight is a blast, along with being an appropriate difficulty for being the second boss of the game. You gotta love how she tests your ability to pay attention by obscuring your screen with paint and by bringing 2 attacks to life, along with 1 safe canvas to hide under. I gotta wonder if she has any history with Drossia, Vividria, or maybe even Adeline.
Susie from Kirby Planet Robobot. I enjoy fighting her with her using the mech. It's a really fun boss fight.
He was sealed away for fear of his power being too great, but then was unsealed when Meta Knight wanted to become stronger. Well, at least the fight was good, and the music, whoo boy!
My pick is for Heavy Lobster from Superstar. With flame and paint attacks, an equal mix of challenge and fun, and a rage state you can activate with the right ability, it's no wonder he's enough of a cult favorite to get his own music in Ultra.
And here we are, my favorite boss in the series. So, when the overview trailers started coming out for Forgotten Land, one of the hot topics was the cute little critter of the day, Elfilin. Half the fanbase loved him immediately, while the other half immediately thought that this little guy would turn out to be the twist villain.
And to be perfectly honest, I was in the latter camp. Marks and Magalore gave me trust issues I still haven't fully gotten over. Turns out I was only half right.
I was expecting a twist involving Elfilin at some point. I wasn't expecting my furry companion to actually be the missing half of a goddamn SCP! But hey, add another one to the list of ultimate life forms. You thought we've explored all the lore that is? You do remember what series we're talking about, right? So this thing was an interstellar invader who messed with the wrong planet and got captured by its original inhabitants, who researched its powers to create warp technology until a certain incident split it in two. So, are these the same ancients who created the Master Crown and Galactic Nova? Were these ancients human? So this giant creature was the thing that created the Beast Pack and brainwashed DDD so it could get its other half back. Yikes. So after dealing with Leongar, this extraterrestrial menace decides to go full Resident Evil in a chase that ultimately ends badly for our heroes. Now complete once more, the beast unveils its true form. Fecto Elfilis. That first shot right there. Take a good look at it. That single frame sets the tone of this entire final battle. To this creature, you're just as insignificant as a common fly. Clearly this freak hasn't been paying attention. From the very start, it'll assault you from afar with energy blades before diving at you with crazy fast speed. From there, it attacks swiftly and without mercy, slashing at you with its caduceus, stabbing it through portals creating shockwaves, scraping it along the ground leaving flames behind it, and even blasting at you with massive lasers. All this takes place on the helipad atop the abandoned lab as a majestic final boss theme plays with choir, strings, and piano. You gotta be on the move almost constantly, otherwise you pretty much have no chance. Eventually, the song goes through one of 14 transitions as the second phase approaches, which begins with Elfilis summoning gigantic meteors through dimensional rifts. As the theme becomes more chaotic and adds horns, Elfilis will ramp up its attacks and even heal itself, which you can and should interrupt. By the way, the theme is called Two Planets Approach the Roche Limit, referring to the minimum distance two celestial bodies can be apart before one starts tearing the other apart. That comes into play after you deplete Elfilis' health and barely free Elfilin from it via mouthful mode. In his rage and desperation, Elfilis makes it personal by attempting to throw Planet Popstar itself into you. And then... You know what? Screw it. This is the top 5 jokes I can make about this finisher. Number 5. Autobots, transform and roll out. Number 4. Your winner. Number 3. Number 2.
You've been hit by, you've been struck by.
Number 1. The funny thing is, this isekai ends the way many isekais begin. With Truck-kun.
And you know what the real crazy part about all this is? We're not done yet.
Yup, after possessing Leongar once again, and somehow surviving getting absorbed by Morpho Knight, the beast returns one last time in the final arena in a brand new form. Chaos Elphalus. This new form wields amplified versions of its previous attacks, plus a few new ones like tornadoes, giant projections, and arena-filling lasers, but also a final soul form with black holes, lasers of the pinpoint and arena-filling variety, and the classic soul cutters, and in the absolute final phase, 3D variations of Mark Soul's Paintball Rain, Dracea Soul's Bouncing Sphere, and Gigantic Fireball Rush, which you dodge by jumping on debris. Chaos certainly is fitting, and you'll be catching your breath when it's all over. Call it recency bias if you want, but this boss has all the right notes to it. A thrilling battle that keeps you on your toes even if you have the boss-obliterating Morpho Knight sword, absolutely incredible atmosphere, brand spanking new lore implications, a boss theme that rivals those of Magalore and Void, unbelievable stakes, and an ending that makes everything worthwhile. If this is what 3D Kirby is capable of, then consider me excited.
And considering that HAL is eager to build on what they did with Forgotten Land, and that the game's associate producer sees a bright future for the series in both 2D and 3D, I have a feeling that Kirby fans will be eating good for years to come. The franchise has always been the equivalent of gaming comfort food for me, but it's always nice to see the people at HAL come up with exciting new recipes like this. As long as Kirby doesn't have to work the lunch rush ever again. I'm the Quarter Guy, and until next time, the arcade is closed.
Nowadays, we've seen quite a few fighting game spin-offs of franchises that aren't fighting games. Persona 4 got a fighting game, Grand Blue Fantasy got a fighting game, Dungeon Fighter Online got a fighting game, but one franchise I doubt will ever get a fighting game spin-off is Monster Hunter. We've already got pretty much the closest we're ever gonna get, and the crazy part is, it came 8 years earlier. Strange that it never got a home port until now. Next time, QG at the arcade, Red Earth. It's game time! Hey everyone, QG here. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share the video around. Feel free to check out my Twitter and my Twitch streams, and consider supporting me through Patreon, and donating to my Extra Life campaign to support Children's Wisconsin. Thanks for watching.